This is the story of the most dangerous economist in history. He was a man who killed a romantic rival in a duel. He escaped from a high-security prison in London. He became the wealthiest man in Europe. And then he destroyed an entire country with a single idea. His name was John Law, and his story is the ultimate warning about paper money. To understand this disaster, we must go to France in the year 1715. King Louis XIV had just died. He left behind a country that was completely bankrupt. Decades of wars and building palaces like Versailles had emptied the treasury. The debt was so massive that the government could not even pay the interest on its loans. France was a dead empire walking, but John Law had a solution. He was a Scottish genius who understood something that no one else did. He realized that money is just a tool for exchange. At that time, money meant gold and silver coins, but Law argued that money could be paper. He convinced the French regent to let him open a bank, the Banque Générale. This bank started issuing paper banknotes backed by the king. It worked like magic. Suddenly trade flourished. Merchants had money to do business. The economy started to breathe again. John Law became a hero. But he was not satisfied. He wanted more. He looked across the ocean to the French colony of Louisiana in North America. It was a vast territory along the Mississippi River. Law created a company called the Mississippi Company. He told the French people that this land was filled with mountains of gold and silver. He said it was a paradise that would make everyone rich. In reality, it was mostly a swamp filled with alligators and mosquitoes. But nobody knew that. Law launched a massive marketing campaign. He sold shares of the Mississippi Company to the public. To make it easier for people to buy shares, he did something revolutionary. He printed more paper money from his bank so people could use it to buy his stocks. It was a perfect circle. Print paper money, buy shares. Share price goes up. People feel rich. The stock price exploded. It went from 500 livres to 10,000 livres in a year. The excitement in Paris was insane. People from all over Europe traveled to Paris just to invest. The street where the stock exchange was located was so crowded that people were crushed to death. Servants became millionaires overnight. A new word was invented to describe these people: millionaires. John Law was now the most powerful man in France. He controlled the bank, the tax system, and the foreign trade. He was practically the king. But the laws of mathematics are stubborn. You cannot print wealth, you can only print paper. The amount of paper money in circulation was 4 times more than all the gold and silver in France. Inflation started to creep in. The price of bread and milk doubled, then tripled. Smart investors started to get nervous. They began to sell their shares and exchange their paper notes back for gold. Law saw the danger. He tried to stop them. He made it illegal to own large amounts of gold. He made it illegal to export coins. He practically turned France into a police state to protect his paper money. But confidence is a fragile thing. Once people realized the bank did not have enough gold, the panic was unstoppable. In 1720, the bubble burst. Thousands of people stormed the bank demanding their money. There was not enough gold to pay even a fraction of them. Soldiers had to hold back the angry mobs. The stock price of the Mississippi Company collapsed to zero. The paper notes became worthless trash blowing in the streets of Paris. John Law went from being a hero to the most hated man in France. He had to flee the country in disguise to avoid being lynched. He died years later in Venice, forgotten. France was left in economic ruins. The trauma was so deep that the French people did not trust banks or paper money for another 80 years. Some historians argue that the poverty caused by this crash planted the seeds for the French Revolution. So what is the lesson for us today? We live in a world of paper money, or digital money. Our central banks print trillions of dollars, creating their own bubbles. They call it quantitative easing, but John Law would recognize it immediately. The mechanism is exactly the same. When you create too much money out of thin air, you distort reality. You create a feeling of wealth that is not real, and eventually reality always wins. John Law was a genius, but he forgot that money must be a store of value, not just a piece of paper. This brings us to the end of our series on bubbles and crashes. We have seen tulips, we have seen Newton, we have seen the dot-coms. The technology changes, but human nature stays the same. Greed, fear, and the delusion of easy wealth. To protect yourself, you must understand these cycles. By subscribing to Hidden Logic, you are building a shield of knowledge against the next crisis. We use history to illuminate the future. In our next series, we are going to change gears. We will stop looking at the victims and start looking at the masters. We will study the families who built the modern world. We will start with the godfathers of the Renaissance, the Medici family. They were bankers who bought the papacy, funded Leonardo da Vinci, and created the model for modern power. You do not want to miss the architects of money. See you in the next playlist.